Hey y'all, it's Betsy. So today I figured we'd go over something that I get questioned about all of the time. What my favorite makeup brushes are, what brand of makeup brushes do I recommend, who makes the best makeup brushes. Now, if you've seen my brush collection, I have a trillion makeup brushes. I'm exaggerating, but not by much. I mean, my makeup brush collection is large and in charge, and I have everything from expensive Wayne Goss and Artis all the way down to super cheap brushes off of Amazon. Now, these brushes are dirty because these are what I used for today's look, and these are my tried and true favorites. You have seen them all in several videos previously, but I figured I would kind of show you, and at least that way, if it's not the actual brush, but maybe the shape that you like, that way you can get almost a handle on what I like to use. Now I figure we'll start with eye brushes and then we can move to face brushes. Now, typically what I like to start off with is a brush similar to this, which is just the Morphe. This is from the Ice Lace set, and it is a big fluffy blender, as you can see. And I like to use this to fluff my setting powder and then typically a matte creamy shade all over the eye. That is one of my favorite things to do. And this, with this flat top, really help it go on really, really well. I like this style of brush. That is the first brush I typically go to for the start of any eye look. Now, the second brush I typically go to for any eye look is the Morphe M441. It is a big fluffy blender brush. This is what I use to put on my transitions shade, and if you can tell, it is a little bit more domed shape right through there, so it gets into the crease of your eye, but it fluffs out the shadows, so it has a nice airbrushed look around the outside of the eye. So that is brush number 2. Now, depending on what type of look I'm going for, will depend on how many brushes I use. Typically, my third brush, which is the color I use to deepen up the crease and the outer V, I typically try to keep most of my eye looks between about 4 to 6 colors depending on the brushes. But I use the Morphe M507. As you can see, it is still a blender brush, but it is small. It has a nice pointed curve, so it really gets into that crease. It really works well. And it helps pack on a little bit of color. And if the color gets a little bit too harsh, I will use one of these too. Plus, I also use both of these under my eyes to smoke out the lash line. These little teeny blender brushes are my favorite. This is one from a Sonia Kashuk set. And then this is a Wayne Goss number 20. Now, if I had to choose a brush out of these two, which would be my favorite for that, it would be the Wayne Goss, but the Wayne Goss is super duper expensive. But it is just the perfect shape to smoke out under the lash line and also to really soften up whenever you're using a deep shadow. It helps soften up those edges so it doesn't look like you just packed on a bunch of shadow. Those two I absolutely adore. Now, if I'm doing a glitter or something of the sort, a shimmer on my lid, I typically will go for a flat pack brush. Now, excuse my MAC 248 looks disgusting, but for some reason when I use, which if you haven't seen, I have a brush cleaning video, I use Dawn dish soap with a mixture of white vinegar in it to clean my brushes. The only brushes that I have any issue with looking cruddy after it, and it's not the brush itself nor it's the handle, it's the fennel, I think is how you say that. They look disgusting after it, but it doesn't hurt the brush. But for some reason, it's almost like, I don't know what finish they use. But a flat shader brush, not shader, packing brush along those lines. I spritz it with MAC Fix Plus that puts on your shimmer really well. And depending on what type of shimmer will be what I will use, these 4. I actually really like to use the MAC 248 to smooth on my glitter glue and then to apply glitter, and I like to use this BH Cosmetics flat packing brush to do most of my other shimmers because it's small. Now, a couple of other favorites that I use quite a bit, and both of these I use pretty similarly depending on what type of inner corner I'm going for. Now, the Morphe, I have no idea what this is, but it's just a pencil brush. If I'm going for something that's not so dramatic and I want it a little bit where it drags out a little bit further as far as inner corner highlight, I will use this thicker pencil, and then plus I will use it to highlight under my brow bone. It is a great brush for that. But you can also use it under your eye. It just kind of depends on how you like to use your brushes. Now, the Morphe M431 is my absolute favorite for doing a really blinged out inner corner. I use that all the time. It's what I use today. But these are the basic eye brushes. Now, those are the shapes I like, so hopefully you get something from it. Now, to move on to eyebrows. Now, the two things I can't live without are a spoolie. This is a Moda spoolie in the comb. I really like the size of the Moda spoolie. It's tiny, so it gets in there to your brows. And then an angled liner brush. I use this for my actual brows because I use brow powders most of the time. This one from the Pure collection, My Little Pony. As I said, I got a lot of random ones. This is my favorite one of all. It is super duper soft, but it still has some stiffness. So it really gets in to fill in between those hairs without them looking completely unnatural. That is my preferred way to do my brows. Now, grab a brush, I dropped it. My favorite face brushes. Now, for foundation, I typically use a sponge. I use the Real Technique sponge. It's the orange one, flat side. You've seen me use it 100 times. But for the rest of my face, there are some that you'll know because you've seen me use them, and then some that you may not. So typically, whenever I start with my face, once my foundation and concealers put on, that's when I pull out my brushes. Now, the first brush I always go for is I use the Luxie tapered highlighter brush, the 552. This came in a BoxyCharm. I love the shape of this for applying my powder right underneath my eyes. It is a great shape. Perfect brush for that, but you could use any pointed powder brush. This says highlighter brush. I would not use that for highlighter. I use it for under the eyes. Then after I do that, I use my big all over Morphe powder brush. I love the size of this. As you can see, it gets a lot of coverage. This is just a big dome shaped powder brush. Nothing fancy here. I have like 20 of them. They're all kind of interchangeable, but I like a big, soft, really big, fluffy powder brush to apply the rest of my powder because I don't want it to be cakey. I want it to be diffused, like something like that. Now, I really haven't been doing a whole lot of contour lately. I have been sticking more with bronzer. Contour just has gotten a little harsh, and I'm preferring just the bronzer look. It kind of gives some warmth. So typically to apply my bronzer, which is to all of, you know, where I would contour, but a little bit fluffed out, I use the Morphe M500. I love how this applies the bronzer. It gives it a nice diffused look without it being too diffused. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't blow it out too much. You still can see the color without having to redip and redip back in, but it has that just beautiful, it just does the perfect amount of bronzer. So I really love this brush, and it is super soft and it's not densely packed at all. I'm not sure if you can tell. So it's just perfect for bronzer. Now, to do my nose, I've just been using bronzer again, and I'm not sure what this brush number is, but it is pretty much a fluffy, soft eyeshadow brush. This one is super duper soft. It came from Tarte, from the Make Believe collection, and I just take and lightly go on either side of my nose and right here, and it is so soft. It's along the same kind of lines as the bronzer brush, where it's nice and soft. It gives a nice diffused look without being too harsh. I love this brush, but again, this is one that's kind of interchangeable. What you're going to want to look for in a brush to do like your nose contour is something soft. You don't want something too firm to do your nose contour, because then it can look a little harsh, but it kind of just depends on your personal preferences too. Again, everybody likes different things. Now, onto my favorite blush brush of all time. I've had like 5 of these because after they fall apart, then I buy a new one. And they're super cheap. I think they're only $1. It is the e.l.f. blush brush. It is just the perfect size, at least for my face. As you can see, it is the perfect size to add a sweep of color onto the cheeks. It is a great shape. It's nice and soft. It's not expensive. I have bought these for people because this really is my go-to blush brush. So definitely recommend that. And then last but not least, everybody loves a good highlighter brush. I have heard really good things about the Anastasia highlighter brush. I don't have that one. I have a couple of different variations of highlighter brushes, but this is, and fan brushes, but this is my go-to. And you have seen this in other people's videos. This is the Morphe M510. This is the perfect highlighting brush, or at least in my opinion. It is fluffy, so a lot of highlighters can be very, very intense, and this will apply your highlight intense. But since it's a little bit on the fluffy side, you can also buff it out so it's not like you look like Rudolph with too much highlighter on the end of your nose, because that may look great in Instagram pictures, and you do you make your makeup look how you want to, but for me in real life, I don't want way too much highlighter. I don't want to look like the Tin Man. My personal opinion, you, as I said, you do you. But this just gives that beautiful diffused glow, and it is my absolute favorite highlighting brush. So all in all, something along these lines. And BH Cosmetics has a ton of brush sets that are, and as you saw, there are some BH Cosmetics brushes in here. And as I said, there are a lot that are interchangeable. BH Cosmetics has a ton of brushes that are affordable, and they're really good quality, and they're cruelty free. So they don't use real animal hair. They're all synthetic. If you're looking for something that, if you're not cruelty free, Morphe, a lot of their brushes are not synthetic. Their brushes are really good as well, and they're not super expensive. And then whenever you start getting into the expensive stuff, it kind of just depends on what you want to spend, because Wayne Goss is super duper expensive, Artis. But these are my tried and true that I use all the time, and you have seen each and every single one of these in a video at some point with a tutorial. And a lot of times if you don't see me using it, it's because it's so dirty, I have to clean it before I can use it. Which is sad. Whenever you have like 500 makeup brushes and you use 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19 brushes on a regular basis. But it is what it is. So if you like this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. If you have any other makeup questions, don't forget to leave them down below. And if you hit the subscribe button right down here, that will notify you when I post new videos, which is every Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. Monday and Wednesdays are kind of just random, whatever I feel like filming that day. Fridays are all about crafting for Disney, making Disney shirts, things to wear at Disney. Disney memorabilia, whatever you can think of, it's Disney, Disney, Disney. So, which as y'all know, that's my favorite thing. We will be doing a review on the ColourPop Disney collection. I was able to purchase 90% of it. I didn't get the Tiana or the Jasmine lipstick. It sold out before I bought it. And I finished my purchase at 12:05, which it came out at 10 Pacific time, which is the same as noon our time. So I had my purchase finished at noon at 12:05 and still missed out on the Tiana lipstick, the Jasmine lipstick, and the 2 highlighters. But I got most of it, so I was excited about that. I really wanted that Tiana lipstick too. That brick red was gorgeous. So if you know anybody who has an extra one, hit me up. I will gladly PayPal you for it. But think that's it for today. As I said, don't forget to check me out on all my social medias, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, my second channel, which is Cuttin Corners Vinyl. So I think that's it. See y'all later. Bye.